City Council meeting order. It's Tuesday, November 7th. This is our meeting for our annual budget, and we'll start out with the roll call.
Okay, Caravello.
Here.
Wozniak Scanlon.
Here.
Schumacher. Oh, okay, thank you. Schumacher.
Here.
Kiley.
Here.
Reeves.
Here.
Mayeski. Jensen. Is Jensen there?
Yeah, he's here.
Okay, thank you.
Oh.
Thank you. Sherlucky.
Here.
Butler.
Here.
Hirsch.
Here.
Payton.
I'm here.
Thank you. We have 11 alders present and Lagaki is absent and excused.
Okay, thank you. We have public comment period, and nobody was signed up for that. So we'll go right into communications and presentations. Are there any communications from council members? All right, hearing none, we'll go into presentations. And I think Dave's going to start out with some items related to our sale from 2023 for our debt issuance.
Correct. As you remember, when we adopted or passed the legislation for the debt issue, it allowed myself to choose the one with the lowest true interest cost. So this is just your official notification of the results. Basically what happened is we had to, because of premiums paid, we borrowed $80,000 less, and the interest came in about $3,000 more than Ellers had estimated over the life of the bonds. So came in very close. So Tim and Candy signed all sorts of documents furiously over the last few days. Those went out to the bond council yesterday. They must have got them today because I didn't get any panicky phone calls. So we're all set. We should get about $6.2 million in a couple weeks. Any questions? Okay, thank you.
All right, hearing none, we'll move on to our 2024 budget. And I just have a couple slides that will look familiar, and I've updated them. And you might recognize these from the committee of the whole meetings. And basically, I just wanted to review where we're at. So when we went into the budget, some of the priorities that I had were for a wage increase to recruit and retain staff. And you might recall that we built in a 4.5% increase, which is consistent with what Dane County approved last night for their non-represented employees into their budget. We also wanted to maintain courts as our healthcare provider. And you might recall that we did change brokers, and you're going to get some updated information about that tonight. So a couple things that have occurred since the previous meeting. We wanted to improve our health insurance offering, and that's one of the things we want to talk about. As we had mentioned, the clinic that we want to utilize, and I'll let AJ cover that as we get into Dave's presentation. We wanted to utilize additional supplemental shared revenue. That was the new money that the state set aside of 20% or 1 cent of the sales tax collection, which is we believe a sustainable funding source that will increase as collections hopefully continue to escalate in the upcoming years. We also wanted to use funds from net new construction, which is our growth, for staffing. and to utilize a combination of other funding sources to increase our staffing. One of the things we run into quite often, and you've even seen that at our meetings or at our committees, is really having the ability to have operate at capacity. Typically, we're over capacity, and when that happens, it really creates awkward moments. It puts us in a position where we're pushing deadlines, and sometimes errors can occur because of that. We try to minimize that. And then the other thing we want to do as we enter 2024 is we really want to have a focus on succession planning as well as cross-training in multiple departments. And then we also talked about, at the first meeting, about the restructure of fire and EMS. We do have money in the budget that you'll see on the next slide to begin that process. So this one here updated as well, and this was the additional staffing requests. So we are looking to fill the 2 positions, one at fire and one at EMS, and to have both of those new positions hired by personnel that are trained and certified to do both, to give us more flexibility. The firefighting half of the money for that position will come from the new supplemental shared revenue, and then the EMS half will come out of the EMS budget, and we'll have to monitor the hours as they're working to make sure that they're billed to the proper department, as they're set up as 2 different funding sources. The firefighting is set up under the property tax collections. EMS is set up as an enterprise fund, so they get collections based on their services as they collect from insurance and from folks that use their services, so it doesn't come out of the property tax revenues. Public Works, you might recall that we approved and filled that position already this year in anticipation of having that in 2024 budget. Using the net new construction dollars, we had already, the City Council had already approved an additional 8 hours for a new person that went into the program director position to get that up to 40 hours. In the Park and Rec, we were looking for an additional 15 hours to get that position up to 40 hours. That had been previously approved and included in the budget. And then the IT media services asked for additional $5,000 for additional production folks for the media services part of their operation. And then utilizing other funding sources, we were able to create an assistant finance director position, which we have a job description that's been approved. So we're looking at hiring for that position as soon as we can. Additional police officer, we were able to find some existing money in the police budget that we reallocated. The library circulation supervisor position was one that we had already completed that transition as far as a full-time person that retired. We hired 2 part-time people. We took the benefits and took a 30-hour-a-week employee and put them up to 40. So it was a net zero as far as the dollars, and that position is already, both of those positions have already been filled. Those were all discussed at the Personnel Committee meetings, and we had the endorsement to move forward with all of them, and some of them had already, as I mentioned, been approved by the City Council. And then at the last Personnel Committee meeting, we had 4 additional requests. One was to hire another case manager at the Senior Center for additional 20 hours a week. The Personnel Committee recommended we fund that. The other one was the clerk department. We're looking for a morning person at City Hall for 20 hours a week. Right now we cover it by whoever's available. It's typically 2 to 3 people on a given day, sometimes 3 or 4, depending on what other responsibilities other admin assistants in various departments have during a given day. And then there was 2 other considerations that were not recommended for funding. And one of them was additional duty crew and stipend pay for firefighters. I was at the fire station last night. We talked a little bit about that. Our goal is to really try to look at how those are structured and what we might be able to do to improve that pay as well as participation amongst our volunteers at the fire station. So there was quite a few ideas that were discussed last night at the meeting before and during my time there. And then we had an additional position that was requested for the PD as a dispatcher, and the Personnel Committee did not recommend that we fund that position. But I'm happy to say that we've added multiple new positions and included them in the budget, which I think is really a step in the right direction to help us with our capacity issues and our efficiency issues as we look forward to the coming years. Are there any questions on any of those? All right, that's all I had. And then the next segment, I think Dave is going to cover. He's basically put together a presentation that includes some things that we already discussed and then some changes that have occurred since we had our CIP meetings and our Committee of the Whole meetings. And we want to make sure that you all understand kind of where we left it off and then what we've been working on since then. Much of this has been based on input that we've received from individual council members as well as various committees since we've had those meetings. So whenever you're ready, Dave, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can everybody see the presentation online?
Yes.
Okay, I see a couple heads nodding. Thank you, folks. Okay. Okay. Let's start at the high level things that everybody's looking for. The operational levy, $6.6 million. We increased by about 119,000. We're exactly at the levy limit for net new construction. So that's a whopping 1.83% that we were allowed to go up. So you combine that with debt service, we've got about $11.1 million in property tax levy. We're up 600,000 or 5.76%. But because our equalized value went up almost 14%, the mill rate's dropping about 50 cents per thousand. So that I've just got the different tax 100, 150 and so forth on there just so people can see it if they're not good at doing math in their head to kind of get a idea of where their property taxes are going to go. Some other information. Total expenditures is about $39.5 million. That does not include Stoughton Utilities. Correct me if I'm wrong, you're about $20 million. Yeah, so you're looking at about a municipal corporation of $60 million in revenue. So we're not small, even though we have only about 13,000 people. For stormwater, the equivalent runoff unit is going up $3.06 or 3.9. That is a charge that Stoughton Utilities runs through their monthly billing. Then we get it. And then the refuse collection charge, which is added to the property tax bill as a special assessment, is increasing $7.09 or about 3.5%. For the general fund, we're committing $161,291 in fund balance. The largest portion of that, $85,000, is for retirement payouts. If you remember, that resolution said we're going to put $85,000 into the budget every year for payouts. We don't know how much we're going to need, obviously, but that's a starting figure. And several months ago, the council did change the funding for retirement payouts. We've got it 100% funded in the assigned fund balance. I have to assume that that's one of the things that helped us with our Moody's rating to keep where we're at AA2. The expenditure restraint program, I had to add $39,000 in expenditures so that we don't hurt ourselves in the future. If I was $39,000 less, that's another $39,000 that I couldn't use next year, so that's just playing the game. Levy limit constraints, we're $32,000 over the levy limit, and the mayor recommends that we're using that dollar amount. To be honest, I can find $32,000 in our fund balance. I'm not too worried about having that. And the DEI task force, I'm assuming that they will be having a carry forward of $5,000 carried forward into the next year. The reason I highlight these committed fund balances is that language, especially in the resolution that we have for the budget, means that it goes into a different account in the financial statements. So we got to dot the i's and cross the t's so that the auditors are familiar with that. Any questions on the committed fund balance at all from anyone? Okay. So what changed since the last committee of the whole meeting? I found an error in the levy limit calculation for personal property aid, so that was a slight correction, but I verified that everything ties out now, and verified that we are adhering to the expenditure restraint program. I left about, and I'm going from memory, 20,000 wiggle room, or I'm sorry, 2,000 wiggle room, that in case any budget amendments would occur, such as the one that I believe is going to get proposed tonight, that we're still within the limits. And then personnel, we discovered that, as Mayor, AJ, and myself were looking at some of the benefits, realized that I did not link the life insurance premium to only those who were WRS eligible. So that was a tweak. It was about 29,000 memory in total that we changed for the people, so that would help lower the levy. Police department. We made sure that any individual wage increases, whether it was, and these are all non-union positions, certain individuals had agreed upon wage increases, so we had those accounted for. We did take out the part-time dispatch pool, but we retained the dispatch overtime pool. We increased the crossing guards from, I think it was $11.50 up to $15 an hour. That was one of the things that Chief Jenks had asked for. And we also added an additional civilian service officer for 10 hours per week.
And the CSO, that was a position that had always been in there. And when we did our first run, that position was vacant. So we basically just missed it when we were doing our first run at the budget. So we just put something back in that should have been in there all along. So it's not an additional position. It was an existing one that was just vacant.
Well, actually, Tim, we had the first one in for 10 hours.
Yeah.
And then we added another person for 10 hours.
Yeah, but traditionally there was one person for 20.
Oh, okay,
So,
thank
yeah,
you.
So the hours were the same, but it's job shared. Did you have a question?
Yeah, Dave, on the life insurance
Yes.
thing, for those employees that thought that they were having life insurance, did they ever pay into it? That now we should reimburse them, or how does that
Okay.
work?
Two different things. You've got the Excel spreadsheet originally included the life insurance premiums, but those employees did not have it on their paychecks. They never paid any premiums because they were never eligible for it. City clerk, we did add that, as the mayor mentioned, we added the additional admin assistant at 20 hours per week. And then along with that, the current admin position was at 22.5. We've reduced that to 20 hours. That person generally was not working the 22.5. That was more of a buffer, so we thought we'd keep it in for the total of 2080 hours between the two positions. Library, I'm giving a little bit more detail because it looks like a lot of ins and outs, but we had the youth circulation services assistant position. That person retired. We've replaced that person with 2 10-40 hours. But as we were working through this, we discovered that we needed to take out the vacant position, so that was a savings there. Those three things together, though, zero out for hours. There's some differences because of benefits that were involved. And I did have one of the children's services assistant in at 280 hours. Not sure where that number came from. It could be 2080, and I missed a zero. I couldn't figure that one out myself, but that's gone now. And as the mayor indicated, we did add a case manager in senior center for 1040 hours, trying to get our cases backlog caught up to a little bit normal. On the CIP, we recently discovered that Nordic Ridge and Kettle Park West cannot hear the emergency sirens. So we're working with Dane County to get a new siren put in the area. We're considering it on some of the land that Stoughton Utilities owns outside of Kettle Park West. So we may have some costs to purchase or lease land there. But we added that as a bondable item. The other thing is shared ride services. The budget had originally proposed a 50-cent per trip increase. The mayor requested that we put it down to 25 cents. We know that it's hard for those individuals who may not always have the financial wherewithal, but at the same time, when the state cuts over $30,000 in revenue and we have increased ridership, we've got to balance the budget in some way. We actually increased the property tax levy by over $50,000 for shared ride services. Wages and benefits, I'm going to kind of start here, but then I'm going to turn the floor over to AJ for some comments. We've got 4.5% in for wage increases for all non-union employees. I don't believe Stoughton Utilities is that same exact percent, or are they?
No, it's scattered.
Scattered, okay. And then there's a Me Too clause for the union contract, so whatever the non-union got, the unions also got. And health insurance, I'm going to turn that over to AJ to give the good news.
Yeah. So we were able to negotiate down another percentage, which was huge for us. We did not think the courts was going to do anything further, but some of the information that we shared with them regarding what we were aware of within the policy and some of the drug rebates, we were able to really push them and get them to sharpen their pencil a little bit more. So we came down from our initial quote at 9.9. Our new broker, USI, dropped us to 6%, partnering with us. And then as of Thursday, courts came back, and I called the mayor from vacation. I was so excited. We got dropped down to 5%. So huge win for us and some cost savings.
And one thing I'd want to add, if you look at the language in the resolution, the last be it resolved basically says the finance director is authorized to make small tweaks as necessary. This is one of those small tweaks. The 1% decrease, technically I should be allocating it to each department because we found out on Thursday, we had to get this out on Friday, wasn't enough time available. So that'll be a tweak that I'm doing. So technically each department's tax levy will go down a little bit, but we're still going to stay at the levy limit amount, so means slightly less fund balance used. But I just want to give you a heads up that that will be an adjustment that'll be taking place. Anything else you wanted to add, AJ?
No, just, yeah, one more thing. Just the other piece of that was we did not make any changes to our plan design. So that means nothing changed with co-pays, nothing changed from the employee standpoint. And I'm sure Dave will get to this in there, but from the employee side, there's no change in their premium either. So this is a huge, huge win for us this year. That's it.
Any questions on wages and benefits?
We did have to add the money in for the clinic. You want to kind of cover that while you're up
Yeah,
there?
so we had talked initially about this near-site clinic that we're utilizing. It'll be at the Edgerton Hospital, and they have a specialized area there. I did have the opportunity to go tour the facility and meet with the overseeing physician, the PA, and one of the nurses that works there that will be seeing our employees. We have an entire marketing blitz that will be taking place, and on-site training for our employees to understand how this whole thing works. So we'll be doing that between now and the end of January. But the near-site clinic, the utilization of that will help lower our experience modification factor, which by pushing our staff or guiding them in that direction, it's going to be a lower cost for us when it comes to renewal time next year because our utilization will be lower. So we're hoping that we'll be able to use this near-site clinic to be able to lower our costs. On the flip side, there is a $11 per employee cost for this. So Dave, did that come out to like 30,000, 35?
34.
Right around $35,000, and we were able to find that within the budget and fund it. So we're pretty excited to have this specialized clinic for our employees that Monday through Friday they'll be able to go to. And the big thing with this is, I don't know if you're aware or if you've experienced this yourself, but trying to get into a clinic is difficult and to see a physician. And they have guaranteed us that within 48 hours max, we'll be able to have our employees or their dependents that are on the plan seen, which is one of the main complaints I've heard is just generally getting into a physician to get care. So we're pretty excited about that, but there's an additional cost there as well.
Yeah, and then the other benefit is there's a number of employees that live south of Stoughton.
Yeah, so Mercy, for some reason, does not play well with courts, and they terminated their relationship with courts about partway through the year. And we do have a decent amount of employees down in that area, so they've had to find care in other locations. So that could mean coming to Madison, coming to Stoughton. So being able to have a facility that they can go to in the Edgerton area is a nice convenience for them. So we were excited to be able to offer this to complement our existing services.
Did you want to talk about the drug prices?
Yeah, one of the other things with the near-site clinic, I'm sorry if I'm repeating things that I've already said, but some of the drugs that will come through there will be at no cost to the employees. And it's another way that we can ratchet down when it comes time for negotiations next year with courts, is that will be coming through the Edgerton clinic at no cost to the employee. Some will have a reduced cost. But again, that'll help us when it comes time to having some type of leverage when it comes time to renegotiate, and also another advantage to our staff.
Thank you, AJ. Okay, numbers all over the place. I am not going to read every number to you. Basically, this is sorting the property tax levy by dollar amount. No surprise, the police department is the largest area by far for our budget. They have a levy of $3.8 million out of a total of 6.6, so quite a bit goes to that department. Same kind of numbers, just showing different breakdowns. Public safety is our largest area, $4.2 million, which is police, fire, planning and development. That's actually building inspections, but under revenue rules, that's considered public safety. General government is our next largest area, $2.6 million, and culture and rec at $1.6 million for the levy. Keep that in mind, culture and rec is the third largest by levy, but when we get to a slide later, you'll see the expenditures, and they're more than, they're not number 3 anymore. Again, I've just got numbers all over the place. What I've got is basically I've got the data on one slide and then a pie chart on the next slide so you can see it. But this breaks down for the general fund where we've got the different types of revenues. And we are approaching over almost half of our revenue is property tax. So that's what makes it so difficult to keep a balanced budget every year when a large majority is property tax and it's limited to, in this case, we've been less than 2% the past few years. If I look at all debt or all revenue categories, all funds, debt becomes the largest. But you notice our debt proceeds went up by $3.2 million compared to the prior year. We do have a lot of parks that we're proposing bonding for in calendar year 24, so that's why the large increase is there. If I look at which funds have the largest revenue, no shock, general revenues, or general fund is the largest. That's pretty standard for every department. And the capital outlay funds, which is our debt service, is next. But again, looking at just general fund, just a high-level breakdown. Wages, about 55% of our budget. Benefits, 22%, and operating expenses is everything else. This one is kind of interesting, at least in my opinion. If I look just at the benefits, what's our largest area? And 50% of our benefits in the general fund is health insurance. As AJ said, we were able to keep it down to 5%, which is a great amount. That's lower than I've seen in a long time, but that's a area where we do pay out a few dollars, but that's one of the ways that we attract employees too. If I look at expenditures just in the general fund, public safety is the highest. Culture and recreation is the 4th highest. When I get to slides for all the departments or all the funds, those numbers change though, of course. This is all funds, again, breaking down of health insurance. We're right around the same number, health insurance right at 50%. So it doesn't matter which department as a whole, half of our benefits is health insurance. I mentioned this before when I have all funds, but when I look at by category, culture, recreation, education is now the #1 area, primarily due to the amount of debt that we're issuing for all those parks. Yes. Library, opera house, parks. I think I'm missing
There was,
something
like,
else.
fireworks and smaller ones like that. were
Yeah.
in there.
But those are the 3 largest areas.
Right, so when you were saying that it's just parks that are causing that, is that the biggest expenditure, or is it all of them combined?
No, the parks would be the biggest area because we've got, and I'm going from memory, $4.2 million in bonds just for parks in calendar year 24 proposed.
And some of them originally were budgeted for this year. With delays down on the riverfront, we had to rebudget them for next year. So I think maybe that distorts it a little bit.
It does somewhat, yes. Any other questions?
guess the other one, you had conservation and development. What is actually in that one? I mean, these are just not our normal department things, so I'm trying to figure out what you put
Well,
in those
these are-
categories.
These are the titles that Wisconsin Department of Revenue uses along with what we see in our financial statements. Conservation and development is basically anything dealing with erosion and economic development. So planning department is the biggest contributing factor or contributing area for conservation and development.
Thank you. I'm just
You're-
want to make sure that I understand where in each category.
Okay? Glad I could help or answer that question for you. That's all I wanted to highlight. Any specific questions? You guys are taking it easy on me. Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing, and I believe that Brett wants to talk about his memo also.
Oh, and also, Dave, I don't know if you went over this before, but just because we have a lot of new council members, can you kind of go over what the pilot agreements are, just so everybody's on the same page with that?
Pilot is payment in lieu of taxes, and depending upon which area of the statute you look at, it's either a pilot or it's a PILT. I'm used to calling it a PILT at other places. We call it a pilot here, but it's the same thing. We get payment in lieu of taxes from Dane County, the Stoughton Housing Authority, and Stoughton Utilities. Those are all tax exempt entities, but they are contractually agreeing to pay certain amounts to us each year, and those are recalculated each year. Stoughton Utilities actually does the calculations for themselves, and I believe Baker Tilly reviews it before any payment goes out.
They do, that is correct.
Okay, one more question.
Sure.
The intergovernmental revenues, where does that all come from? Is that,
That is grants that we receive from federal, state, and local governments.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else have any questions? All right, I'll get it teed up here for Brett. All right, are you with me, Brett? Can you see it?
Yep, I got you.
All
Perfect,
right.
thank you. Just two items I wanted to highlight just to create some transparency as we move through the budget process. Sometimes these items get lost in the budget, but I just wanted to highlight them because they do affect everybody that uses trash collection. And the next slide will address the compost site. So I just wanted to bring this before you. It is in the budget. We did discuss this at Public Works. But essentially, John's is requesting a 2.8% cost of living increase, which is part of their contract, and they are able to do that because they are lower than the consumer price index for the Midwest region, which is at 3.2%. So in reality, they could have asked for 3.2%, but they didn't. Yep, right here. And so they essentially the fees for trash, we go 49 cents. That's for John's. There's a small increase that does that the city does charge for. So that amounts to that $7.79 per year that Dave highlighted in his screen. But I just wanted to make sure that you guys are all aware of the contractual obligation we have with John's that does extend through 2024. And next couple city council meetings, we'll be talking about a 5-year extension that they're asking for, but that's not for tonight. I just wanted to highlight the increase that's 2.8%, which is part of their contract. Any questions on the John's contract before we move on to the compost site? All right. Then I just wanted to highlight that we are looking at raising our fees to use the compost site. We have not done so since we opened in 2018. We're looking at increasing our rates for residents to $25 from $20 per year, and non-residents from $25 to $30 per year. If we did not do this increase, we'd be looking at a net loss of $655. That's just using some of the 2022 permits that we did have. That was a full year. So if we increase to 25 and 30 respectively, we'll be increasing our revenues to 4,387, and that net increase actually goes to fund general administrative costs and street labor that we use that are not ordinarily funded through the general fund. But I just wanted to highlight that we are looking for an increase in the site fees, and happy to answer any questions about that.
Any questions on the yard waste fees? Okay, I think
Great,
we're
thank you.
good. Thank you. Okay, we'll move into our consent agenda, and we do have some minutes in there, so I would entertain a motion to approve the council minutes from October 24th. Motion by Jensen, is there a second? Second by Sherlucky. Any discussion on the minutes? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 And any opposed? None opposed, that motion carries. We do have the need to have a public hearing for the budget. So I'll close the regular meeting and I'll reopen for the public hearing. And there's nobody signed up to speak. So I would close the public hearing and then reopen for our regular order of business here. And we have a few different resolutions here. The first one is R-169, and this is the one that includes the 5-year CIP for the city and or for Stoughton Utilities. And I think we can maybe introduce this one. DJ, did you want to introduce this one? R-169?
I'm trying to find it in my packet.
All right, I'll get it up on the screen here for you. And then if we have any questions about this after we get the motion, Shannon's here to answer any questions you might have on the utilities budget.
So I'd like to introduce Resolution 169, 2023 to authorizing and directing the proper city officials to approve the Stoughton Utilities 2024 budget and 5-year, which is the 2024 to 2028 capital improvement plan. And so moved.
Is there a second? Second by Alderperson Jensen. Anything you want to highlight here, Alder Payton, or any questions for Shannon?
I would turn over to Shannon, and I think Jill was on as well if she wanted to answer any questions or speak to it.
Okay, Jill's supposed to be on vacation. All right, are there any questions for Shannon or Jill? Okay, hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 And any opposed? That motion carries. Thank you both for being here. Next item is R-171 of 2023. This one comes from the Committee of the Whole. President Hirsch.
R-171, 2023, adoption of the 2024 budget and tax levy. And that's all it says. And I so move.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alderperson Jensen. All right, any discussion on the budget?
Lisa.
Alderperson Reeves?
So I wanted to offer a small amendment, and Dave helped me figure out how I needed to do this, but I'll introduce it by saying that when Rachel Venegas left council, I joined the Sustainability Committee. And recently, there have been some discussions about, they're getting very close to kind of wrapping it up. And I have to give them a lot of kudos. Most of these folks are volunteers from the community. Rachel had, I believe, Alderperson Hiley have been on the committee since its inception, and they have done an incredible job with putting together a plan. They're at the point where they are getting close to writing it, but and recent discussions, we've thought that maybe a consultant might be a good person to help get that tidied up. And so they were able to get in touch with Katrina Becker, who gave us a proposal. We're about $1,375 short in the budget for her to help us with that. So I'd like to offer an amendment, and it's quite lengthy, but Dave assures me that I have to say all of these words. So I'm going to go ahead with it. So it would be the amendment would be as follows: to increase the expenditures in the Common Council budget by $1,375, increase property tax revenue in the Common Council budget by $1,375, decrease property tax revenue in the general revenues budget by $1,375. Increase fund balance applied from the general fund in the general revenues budget by $1,375. Increase the total budgeted expenditures as listed in Resolution 171, 2023 by $1,375 for a new total of $39,524,457. And I believe, Dave, you said there was one other thing we needed to add.
Yes, we also need to, in that same resolution, update the amount of committed general fund balance.
So that is the motion I would like to propose.
Second.
Second by President Hirsch. Did you catch all that, Candy?
Candy has a written copy of the motion.
I did not write.
All right. So as I understand it, you're just looking for money to finish the plan.
Yeah.
And I would just add, as recent as today, I received an email from another community really asking how our sustainability committee got started, what the makeup is, kind of the process that we went through to get to this point. So word is definitely getting out. And you mentioned some of the committee members. I attended the Sustain Dane Summit the other day, and we had 3 of our sustainability committee members there as well. So they're really engaged in the process, and I'm looking forward to their plan.
Really very hardworking group, and like I said, I came in late, so I can't take any of the credit. I've just been sort of a liaison with council, but Rachel and Ben and the others on the committee have done an outstanding job, so kudos to them.
We're going to give you credit for getting the money to get us to the finish line. How does that sound? Any questions or comments on this one? Hearing none, all in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? None opposed. So that takes us to the original motion as amended. Any discussion on that? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? None opposed. That carries. And that takes us to R172 of 2023. And let me find this one. And this one here is we did a separate resolution for the Choose Renewables. I know Alderperson Hiley had reminded us that this is something we've been talking about, and we wanted to definitely include in the budget. So to make sure we have its own resolution, and I assume that the $6,214 for this, you've already entered into the departments, or you're going to be.
Correct, it's already entered.
Okay, so who would like to make the motion for this one? Alderperson Hiley, you want to do that?
Sure. I'll make the motion to enroll the city in the Choose Renewables program.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alderperson Reeves. Any discussion on this one?
I could clarify what exactly that is. That's something that is available to any customers of Stoughton Utilities, where for a reasonable price, it's $1 per block of X amount of electricity. You can elect to have your power be come from a renewable source, or they have these credit exchange things that essentially the power somewhere is renewable, and you're helping that happen by doing that credit. So enrolling the city, we would be the city government power would be essentially coming from renewable sources.
Okay, thank you. President Hirsch?
Dave, I guess I'm a little confused about this one, or the mayor, because before Jamin left, he assured us that that was actually, he had already done that, but maybe he never followed through on that, because we had many discussions with him, and he had said that all that was taken care of, so.
All I can tell you is that Stoughton Utilities told us we are not enrolled.
So this will ensure that we're enrolled. And I really want to take a moment to thank Jill and Shannon for doing the calculations, and you probably saw the breakdown in the packet, so you can really see, how that's broken down and really where the total came from. So thank you for that. Anybody else have any questions or comments on this one? And I don't know if there's a formal application we need to fill out, or just send utilities the. So we just send you the resolution, or? Okay.
So obviously Jill has all your information, so we would just need the notified that you want to enroll into the program, and I believe she would have all that via your motion tonight, so you'll be officially be enrolled. Yep.
All
That's
right.
correct.
Thank you both. Okay, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? None opposed, that motion carries. I'd entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion by President Hirsch, a second. By Alder Jensen. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? None opposed. Thank you. Have a good night. We'll see you on the 14th.